Welcome back to the Cap Report. In this video, we're going to go over UFC 277, which, I feel has gone a little bit under the radar, actually. But all in all, it's a pretty solid card. We're seeing a rematch between Amanda Nunes and Julianna Pena, which is one of the biggest and more compelling fights, I'd say, in any of the women's divisions in the UFC in a while. We got a banger between flyweights Kai France and former champion Brandon Moreno for the interim flyweight belt and a chance at Deiveson Figueiredo probably later this year. We got Derrick on the card, which, always leads to a fun fight. Anthony Smith and Magomed Ankalaev to open the card, which could have a big effect on the future title picture in light heavyweight. Getting into the card, as I said, we start in the light heavyweight division in the previously mentioned fight, Anthony Smith versus Magomed Ankalaev. Fourth ranked Ankalaev is riding an 8-fight win streak, including 2 wins over Ian Cutelaba, a win over Nikita Krylov, Volkan Ozdemir, and most recently Thiago Santos, which I would say the quality of the win didn't necessarily live up to the name value of it. Fifth ranked Anthony Smith is on a 3-fight win streak with wins over Devin Clark, Jimmy Crute, and Ryan Spann. These guys are winning their fights in quite different ways, as Smith has finished all 3 of his last fights, whereas Ankalaev has just 1 finish in his last 4. These two could make up an interesting stylistic matchup. Ankalaev is a low-output, heavy-handed striker who interlaces heavy kicks to the body and head. He exerts a lot of pressure through his footwork to get his opponents back against the fence. He also holds strong Greco-Roman wrestling skills. Anthony Smith also holds heavy hands, but is a higher output striker. He has a strong BJJ game and submission game, being a BJJ black belt. And he's got great fight IQ as well. I think there are a variety of ways this fight could play out. Keys to Ankalaev winning, to me, would be continue the heavy pressure and look to counter Smith. Check the leg kicks. The range they fight at will likely allow for kicks, so look to mix in body kicks. We could see Ankalaev exert that heavy pressure, Smith cede to it, get his back against the fence, and just kind of covering up a lot, which could ultimately lead to an Ankalaev decision, in my opinion. Ankalaev could look to bring the fight to the ground, as Smith has lost to bigger guys controlling him on the ground through wrestling. However, he's dangerous off his back, and I think that he has a solid enough takedown defense that he could create scrambles. I would favor Smith in those situations, as Thiago Santos rocked Ankalaev in those situations and caught him when reaching in to initiate a takedown. I do think there's a chance that Smith gets too reckless with his punches and gets countered, leading to a finish, but I do think that throwing more is a good way to counter Ankalaev's pressuring footwork. The situations I see Smith winning is through a combination of leg kicks, high output of strikes, and particularly his strong jab. The leg kicks are to slow down that pressure and take some of the power out of Ankalaev's hands. I could see Smith winning from defending a takedown, creating a scramble, and either dropping Ankalaev in that scramble or getting to his back. I don't think it's too likely that we see Smith win by decision unless they go to distance and he has a much higher output and doesn't get dropped at all, because I do feel Ankalaev will have heavier strikes, and with the scoring system, damage trumps all, even the number of strikes thrown. Ankalaev is a minus 475 favorite and Smith is a plus 380 underdog, and in my opinion, those odds are far too harsh. Plus 380 on Smith is great value, and I'm fine with Ankalaev being the favorite, but I just feel the odds are way too high on him, and he has a history of having really high odds in his favor. A lot of Smith's last few opponents gave him opportunities to capitalize on. However, Ankalaev, he's not the guy who provides opponents with opportunities to capitalize on. That being said, Ankalaev is the one guy who won't fight someone else's fight and remains within his own game plan no matter what. And I really want Anthony Smith to win this fight, and I really hope he does. I really hope this prediction is wrong, but I'm going to go with Ankalaev by decision. Next up, we move to the flyweight division for Alexandre Pantoja versus Alex Perez. 4th ranked Pantoja has won 2 straight, 3 of his last 5, including wins over Brandon Royval, Machinel. His losses came to other top contenders in the division, including Askar Askarov and Deiveson Figueiredo. 6th ranked Alex Perez hasn't fought since 2020 when he lost to Deiveson Figueiredo in the first round of a title fight. He's had 6 fights fall through since then, which is crazy. Before that loss, he had won 3 straight, and similar to Pantoja, going 3 out of 5 in his last 5, and only really losing to the top of the division in Joseph Benavidez and Deiveson Figueiredo. I really wonder what to expect from Perez. 2 years out can really go either way, right? It could have given him a lot of time to fill his holes in his game, which I believe is more likely given that he's been trying to fight. Partly he's been having issues weight cutting, but the alternative being that MMA moves fast and evolves fast, and he might have to adjust a bit when he returns. Plus there's a whole ring rust aspect to it as well. Generally guys sitting out 2 years is not good for you in terms of just it will take a fight or two for you to really get back in the swing of things. That being said, this should be a great fight. These guys could go back and forth standing up. Perez has a great stand-up game and wrestling game to add to it. Pantoja is also a great striker, can fight at crazy paces and keeps his power at those paces. He's got a strong ground game with lethal submissions. I think this fight might come down to the wrestling aspect. How much will Perez use it? Will he be consistent enough for it to pay off like Askarov did against Pantoja? Or will he get caught in a scramble like he did against Figueiredo? If he can get the fight to the ground and control it, it could be the X factor in getting him the win here. It's interesting because statistically, the fight leans to Perez, but the level of competition Pantoja has fought is much higher overall. Pantoja is a minus 165 favorite and Perez is plus 140 underdog. And I have no issue with these odds. I personally see Pantoja winning this fight by submission. I'm gonna go submission in the second round. I think we'll see Perez with some ring rust. He'll get dropped by Pantoja and Pantoja will jump into a submission like a rear naked choke or maybe a guillotine. We move on to the heavyweight division where we see Derrick Lewis versus Sergei Plavovich. This could be a pretty important fight for Derrick Lewis. It's another fight in his home state of Texas, which he seems to be cursed in lately. He's lost 2 straight there, both in Houston. This one's in Dallas though. But more importantly, will he reestablish himself in the upper tier of this division? 5th ranked Derrick Lewis is coming off a knockout loss to Tai Tuivasa. He's won 3 of his last 5 though, beating Alexandre Olenek, Curtis Blades, and Chris Dawkins. His losses being to Tai Tuivasa and Cyril Gane, so some high level competition. 11th ranked Sergei Pavlovich is on a 3-fight win streak. He's 3-1 overall in the UFC. This is a weird matchup. The level of competition Pavlovich has fought is quite low in comparison to Lewis. I feel like the UFC is looking to build Pavlovich off of Lewis's name in the case that Lewis is starting to fall off. Pavlovich is, he's got good length and power and speed, but Lewis is one of those guys who can lose the fight for 14 minutes and then knock him out in the last minute. I don't really think there's a ton of analysis for this one. Pavlovich is a minus 125 favorite and Lewis is a plus 105 dog. I say these should probably be swapped, but it is what it is. I'm taking Derrick Lewis by 2nd round knockout. He's the knockout king of the UFC for a reason, you know what I mean? Next, we move on to the co-main event, back in the flyweight division for the interim belt, a rematch between former champion Brandon Moreno and Kai Kara-France. Moreno won this first fight, and it was a great fight. If you haven't watched it, it's free online, the UFC posted it for free on YouTube. Go watch it, it's a great fight. First ranked Moreno is 3-1-1 in his last 5, coming off the trilogy versus Figueiredo where he drew and then won, then lost. Before that, he beat Royval and Formiga. Second ranked Kai Kara-France is on a 3-fight win streak with wins over Cody Garbrandt, Askar Askarov, and Bontarin. He's 4-1 overall in his last 5 with a loss to Brandon Royval and a win over Tyson Nam. Kai Kara-France comes from City Kickboxing, home of the anti-wrestlers, which really explains his style. He's primarily a striker who has strong takedown defense. Brandon Moreno is a really complete fighter at this point. You've seen him develop a ton just in that Figueiredo trilogy alone. He's a great striker, he's got great kicks, strong wrestling, and a BJJ game. Both these guys have developed a ton since their first fight, and you can really see it. Brandon Moreno's gotten so much stronger in his striking since then. It's really crazy to watch him go toe-to-toe with Figueiredo versus rewatching his the Kai Kara-France fight, where he put on a good striking display, but the levels to it is just so different. I think early on, Kara-France will be able to eliminate the ground threat of Moreno with his takedown defense, and to be honest, I don't know if Moreno will even try and use it, as he really didn't bother with it in the first fight at all. I think these two are going to stand and trade for much of the early part of the fight, early rounds. I think it's harder to find paths to victory for Kai Kara-France in this fight. His combinations are so slick that I think that in part with his timing and power, it could win him the fight. Moreno did get dropped by Figueiredo a few times, but I don't know if Kai Kara-France's power is comparable to this, but that's where maybe more so the timing comes into things. I think Kara-France's best chance would be to catch Moreno early in this fight. A big question for me too is Kai Kara-France's cardio. Not that he has bad cardio, but we've never seen him in a 5-round fight, with the championship rounds, and it's a question to ask is, how will he fare in that? Moreno, we know, has brilliant cardio, and I think that in the championship rounds could be when he just kind of takes over the fight. For Moreno, the paths to victory I could see are a number of ways: training back and forth the whole fight, winning a decision. I think he could even catch Kai Kara-France in some exchanges. I think his head move is better, and he's great at trading in close range. Obviously, I think that he can get it to the ground. He can win by submission as well. I'd really like to see him continue to throw that head kick at the end of his combos that he threw in the first Figgy fight, where I think he had rocked Figgy with it, but he also threw that combination against Kara-France in the first fight they had. So I'd like to see him kind of throw that a lot too. See if he can get something off of that. Moreno's a minus 205 favorite and Kara-France is a 175 underdog. Those odds seem about right to me. I'm a big fan of both of these guys. I'm so excited to watch them fight. It's gonna suck though to see someone lose here. I've been a fan of Kara-France to see fought against Tyson Nam. Guy's always just in bangers, Great fights, easy to root for. Moreno, became a fan of him probably between the Royval win and then taking the Figueiredo fight on short notice, and just his performance all in all in that one, and his story since then, great. Hard guy to hate as well. So this prediction is gonna hurt, you know what I mean? Because no matter what, a guy I like is going to lose here. But the way I see it playing out is them going back and forth, first 3 rounds, striking. Either I could, take the rounds. I think Kara-France will gas a little bit in that 4th round, and Moreno will be able to take him down and submit him there. So I'm going to go with Moreno by 4th round submission. Now we finally reached the main event in the women's bantamweight division, the rematch of one of the biggest upsets of all time, Julianna Pena versus Amanda Nunes. Pena's won 3 of her last 5, but that doesn't really matter when you beat Amanda Nunes, right? Nunes only lost in her last 5. is to Pena. It's still crazy thinking back on that first fight. Nunes is the women's GOAT, and she hadn't looked beatable in forever. Even early on in that fight, she looked like dominant, that she could end at any point standing up, and even took Pena's back in the first round. Then she kind of just fell apart, you know? Pena started hitting the jab, winning the striking exchanges. Nunes gassed out and just kind of, I don't even know what happened, just lost it, you know? Pena got the fight to the ground, and Nunes basically quit. There's a lot of questions leading into this, you know? Was what happened to Nunes a one-off? Is her motivation still there? Will switching gyms from American Top Team to her own gym help or hurt her here? Is she leaving her prime? You know, what's her cardio going to be like in this fight? You know what I mean? And there's just so many questions that I think this fight is really hard to predict just off of that. Basing it off the first round, she should be able to win this fight. I guess the big question also is, what adjustments will Pena make? She found some things that work. The jabs, you know, working down Nunes' cardio. I'm interested to see if she tries to take a more wrestling heavy approach, or if she's willing to stand up against Nunes again. Pena was always confident going into their fight the first time, but winning it has to have her on another level of confidence now. I think a good path for Pena to win would be by, you know, being careful in the stand-up. Don't look to get into exchanges. Look to land a jab. Hit some leg kicks, but don't get caught up in exchanges with Nunes. Her powers, she actually has a different level of power, especially early on in that fight. Look for takedowns where she can. If she get the fight to the ground, she doesn't have to look for the finish right away, but I want her to more sort of, you know, throw ground strikes and kind of make Nunes wear her weight, you know, try to gas her out that way. Wear on her cardio. I think that Nunes will be more motivated this time, and I don't think she's going to quit as easily, but if she gets as sloppy as she did in the first fight, when she got tired, then it raises Pena's chances a ton. For Nunes to win, she's going to either have to have much improved on her cardio from the first fight, or do a better job of just finding that finishing shot early. In the first round of that fight, Pena threw some pretty bad winging punches that left her open, and I think that Amanda Nunes just needs to capitalize on that more. I think that the last version we saw of Amanda was a one-off. She's back to her usual self. If she's back to her usual self, she can win this pretty handily, but I think that Pena's intangibles will make this fight difficult no matter what. I do think an interesting aspect of the cardio thing too is that Nunes had dealt with COVID once or twice before that fight, so maybe that had a wear on her cardio as well that won't be relevant here now, but it's hard to say. I just think that Nunes, like, as a base fighter, she's a lot higher than Pena in terms of skill, and she has advantages in a lot of places. If she finishes it, I wouldn't be surprised if she's able to finish it early. Nunes is a minus 275 favorite and Pena is a plus 230 underdog, and I can see why these are the odds, but I do think that there's too many questions to make Nunes that much of a favorite. I really am unsure what to make of this fight and who to pick, to be honest. And, you know, actually looking at it, I think the plus 230 is a bit disrespectful to Pena for what she did. You know, she out-willed Nunes. But I can see how that also plays into it, where it wasn't based solely on skill. That being said, I'm going to go with Nunes by second round knockout, but I'm not confident at all in this pick. And with that, we've gone through the card. Let me know what y'all's thoughts are on the fights, any predictions y'all have, any thoughts on my predictions. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. Appreciate y'all as always. The last video went crazy. I still can't believe it had as many views as it did. That being said, this has been the Cap Report. I'm working during the fights, so you hate to see it.